My name is Ben Booth, and this is Big Sky Productions. Victor, tell me about it.
Well, this is Big Sky Voices, and I'm at, you can find me at storytellerfilms.net. Ben, as you found out, New Mexico is probably the state most influenced by Native American culture and peoples. Our guest today is probably the foremost expert in the world on North American Native Americans. Her name is Veronica Tiller.
Veronica, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Veronica has gained her fame and notoriety as the publisher of Tiller's Guide to Indian Country, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But Veronica, you're also have been in the movies lately. Tell us about that experience.
Okay, well, it's funny the way you say I've been in the movies. I just happened to work with Silver Bullet Productions out of Santa Fe on a film that they did about 2 years ago. It's called 1,000 Voices, and it's a film about the Native American women here in New Mexico, and so I represented the Hickory Apache, of whom I'm a member of, here in New Mexico, and also helped with the history storyline for that film. And while I was working with them, I was very pleased to know that, you know, they are a non-profit educational film company, and they have done quite a few films on Native Americans, including one called Canes, and then now they're working on another one called Defending the Fire, which is a movie about the warriors here in New Mexico. Again, the idea being that the warriors are not just from the past, but they exist today as well among all the Indian people in various ways. The way they serve their communities, defend their lands and their water rights and things of that nature.
Veronica, you said something that fascinated me in 1,000 Voices. You were kind of one of the stars of that production, and you said something about not identifying with the women's movement in college because of your own background. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember it. I remember being interviewed about how I felt about the women's rights movement when I was in college in the 1960s during the height of the civil rights and student movements. And basically I said that coming from a culture, the Hickory Apache culture, where women are head of household, women make a big difference in who gets elected to council, they run their children, the tribe, and so forth. I did not feel like I had to push for my rights because I already had them doing.
But it speaks to the structure of the native culture, the Apache culture, as to your status, as the status of women.
That is true, yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some Native Americans could start looking into that idea of being an extra if there was that much business.
But it's a lot of work, isn't it?
Certainly, yes. Yes, I mean, it's like we thought we were just going to go over there for about 4 hours and check it out, and, you know, they're going to film us. Actually, it took 2 full days.
Yeah, getting up before dawn and working late.
Absolutely, yes. We had to get there like 6 in the morning, and, you know, we're like, whoa, this is a lot of work. But anyway, as a result of that, the Silver Bullet Productions and myself and the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and the New Mexico Film Office are sponsoring a workshop on May the 4th at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center from 9 to 4, and it's going to talk about the possibilities of the Native Americans serving as extras in movies here in New Mexico. They'll be finding out about what's happening here in New Mexico in that industry.
Tell you how to find where the jobs are and how to apply for them, and then
absolutely
what to do when you get there.
Absolutely.
Veronica, I have a question for you. Is there still magic in the old Indian traditions and religions?
There has always been magic, but we don't call it magic. I mean, it's not like, you know, a magic show. I mean,
But it's still living. It's still
absolutely,
there.
yes, yes.
Well, I was from a ranch near Cloudcroft, Weed. We had 20 sections there. And we were right up next to the Mescalero Apache place. And so on our ranch was a burial ground. And my grandfather always said to me as a child, respect that spot. Don't mess around that spot because that's someone else's heritage and it's supposedly sacred, you know, and whatnot. And he said, well, that's just what we do. But our alfalfa fields along the valleys were just full of arrowheads and, you know, pottery shards and everything. When we were a kid, we picked them up by the bucket loads. I'd give anything to have those today. No telling what happened to them. But my main question is this. We had snow-capped mountains around New Mexico near the ranches. We had 2 ranches, upper and lower, and we had rivers and springs. If we go back there today, those rivers are not much, and the springs, some of them have actually dried up. They've been there for years. In your religion or your traditional respect for Mother Earth, does your religion agree with or compare with what they call global warming today? Is something happening that's changing our Earth from your perspective, coming from an Indian culture or having an Indian-based religion?
Well, I don't know that I have the answer that you might want me to have, but I do know that global climate changes has definitely affected the Earth, and I think that goes to the idea that perhaps we're not treating Mother Earth like it's supposed to be treated.
Yeah.
There's too much pollution, there's too much polluting of the rivers, too much diverting of there's too much pollution.
Yeah.
And that is not in line with what we think as Native Americans about the sacredness of the earth.
Do
and caring
Native
for the
Americans, as a cultural group, in your opinion, have a deeper respect for the earth and the environment than, say, some other peoples like Caucasians? You know?
I think so. And the reason I think that is because even today I still practice my own religion, and it has to do with holding the earth sacred, and this is our land, you know, and it's not something that we just take it for granted. This is, you know, we believe in our homelands, our sacred country, and that it needs to be protected. And you know, everything comes from the earth. You know, without the earth, we would not be here.
Yeah, yeah. When you were a child, of course, you were raised in a modern society. I mean, you know, civilization, you had electricity and running water, I'm assuming, and all that sort of thing. And I don't want to date you, because at our ranch we didn't have running water when I was a kid, so that, you know, I'm dating myself a little bit. But it appeared to me that the Indian peoples that I knew were healthy people and happy people as family units. They did like to laugh a lot and celebrate a lot. And even though their diets were different, maybe their ways of cooking were a little bit different, they seemed just as healthy as everyone else, maybe healthier. You know, when you were a kid, did you feel like you were in a good, clean, healthy environment?
Yes, absolutely. I was born and raised on a cattle ranch up in northern New Mexico on the reservation, and I do identify with the lack of running water. However, I was always very happy that we lived in a very clean environment, and being born and raised on the ranch, we always had exercise, and it felt like our extended family.
Yeah.
Everyone seemed to be healthy, and today, you know, we're afflicted with diabetes and all the things that the other Americans also have to deal with, and that's because we live in a world where there is less exercise, bad diets, or as I call them, bad diets, and just no care for, you know, you eat fast and the food is not that wonderful, or it's not that good for you.
You tell me
And
not to eat Indian fry bread anymore?
Yeah, I think Indian fry bread is a culprit. Just, you don't want to overdo it, but
Well, you know, your life has been kind of a contrast, because you went from growing up on a northern New Mexico ranch to being the first PhD in the Jicarilla Nation. And how did that journey happen? And how did you go from there to being really the foremost expert on Native American economies and organizations and so on?
Well, you know, one of the things about my background or growing up, my grandfathers always believed in education. They said it was very important for us to get educated. We have to live in a white man's world, and we have to be competent in something. And I happened to choose the field of history as an area to gain some competency. So, anyway, so we believed in the idea that we needed to be educated. So what education was to do for us was to make us better Americans, because we are Americans, and you know, just because we're Native Americans, that doesn't mean we're apart or from the you know, American society. And so I was always told that I had to go and get my education. It was important. And basically that's what I did.
So you went to UNM, then you were a professor at Utah for a while, the university?
Yes,
and
I
then
taught.
you changed your life and went to Washington, D.C.
Right. Well, I opened my own research company because I felt like I wanted to use history more to help my people in the real world, so to speak, as opposed to, as some friends would have put it, sitting up on my ivory tower. Although that credibility of being at a university, being a professor, gave me a lot of credibility and helped me in my own business. And it just helped. It opened a lot of doors for me, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody. So.
And what an example you are to young girls coming up now, you know, and young boys coming up, and with your education and what you've achieved. Wow, that's really cool, I think.
Well, thank you. I like to think that I could be a role model for my own people and the girls in my tribe. However, I also know that it's true in general society. You know, when Hillary runs for president, you know, the girls have this idea that, you know, maybe we could do that, you know, and
Right.
some of my heroes like Senator Elizabeth Warren,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I just think she's just so wonderful and courageous.
Well, you know, if someone like you were in Washington, I think I would go back to thinking I like the idea of scalping certain politicians, you know. I mean, we could start a
Yes,
movement.
I have one in mind right now.
Well, you're not only a publisher, you're also an author, published author and writer, but you have a project you're working on right now about, is it your grandfather, your great-grandfather? Tell us about that.
Okay, the project is a biography of James Garfield Velarde Sr., and he was a traditional chief of the Hickory Apache tribe from, well, he was born in around 1853 and died in 1961, so he lived for an entire century, and so all the different major movements and things that happened to our tribe in that 100 years. And so I just want to tell his story from the perspective of the Native Americans. He was a philosopher, he was a medicine man, he was a tribal leader, and he made a lot of inroads into leadership and helping our people through those tumultuous years. And for example, he served on the first tribal council that was established in 1937, and then he was also very instrumental in our Indian land claims before the Indian Claims Commission of 1946, whereby he helped establish our Aboriginal territory,
Wow.
which includes the area from southern Colorado through northern New Mexico. So that's the story.
And he also taught you how to ride a horse?
Oh yeah, well no, well he was also a medicine man, and he had what they call the powers of the horse, and so my family has always been very, horses have always been a part of our lives. You know, I rode horses maybe up through when I was in college, and so they have a very special place in my heart.
Right.
Sounds like a remarkable man, and you've carried his legacy forward. You know, that's pretty cool. I mean, what you're doing and have done with your life, I think is significant.
I think a lot comes to the legacy that he left behind for our family. And I remember meeting him when I was a young girl.
Right.
I must have been about 9 years old when I met him, and I think he was already over 100 years old. Well, first of all, I would like to invite them to the workshop on Native Americans as extras in the movies, and on May the 4th at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. And I would like to encourage them to, Native Americans, to look into the possibility that they could be in the movies, that we can use movies as a way to document our history, stories about ourselves. We have so much to contribute and say and make a contribution. And out of that experience, maybe we can come up with more actresses, screenwriters, directors in the movie industry, which is an area I think that we have not penetrated to any great extent.
Wonderful, and that's in Albuquerque. And what street is that on?
It's on 12th Street near Interstate 40.
Right across the street from Starbucks. And my wife, Sonny Booth, is with SAG-AFTRA Women in Film, and she is the co-producer for women film projects at the Cultural Center. So we need to get you two together.
Oh, absolutely.
Y'all can do some stuff.
Yes, and anyone that wants to help us can check out Silver Bullet Productions on the internet.
This is Big Sky Voices. Veronica Tiller, what an exceptional person. And she wants us to go May 4th to the Cultural Center, the Indian Cultural Center, right across the street from Starbucks. My name is Ben Booth. We're out of time, and Mr.
I'm Victor Wamed, and Thanks for watching Big Sky Voices.